Hello, today we speak with Scott Herring, professor of percussion at the University of South Carolina and principal percussionist of the Rock Hill Symphony Orchestra. Hello, Scott.
Hi, David. Good to see you. Looking forward to this.
Well, I thought we'd have you tell us a bit about your background first, where you're from and where you went to school. And
Sure thing. Yeah, I grew up in Eastern North Carolina, and went to a high school. Was really musically involved. Really starting around middle school. I started like most folks did in middle school band. Really found a passion and love for that through doing things like all-state band and district band, those kinds of things, and decided I wanted to go on and do this as a music education major and make the musical career my life. And attended East Carolina University, did music ed degree there, student taught, did all that rigmarole. But sometime around the third year, I figured out that I really was hoping to go to graduate school, seek a performance degree. That was really where the passion was to play. And so from there, went on to Northwestern University, did my master's and doctoral work there at Northwestern. It was one of the best 3 years of my life, honestly. My family and I really miss Chicago, actually. We feel like we get homesick for Chicago sometimes. And then right out of there, after finishing my coursework, I was lucky enough to land a job in Kansas and taught at Emporia State University in Emporia, Kansas for 3 years. And then lo and behold, the job came here, open here in 2001, and I started here in the fall of 2002.
so you've been there a while. Yeah,
Been here, yeah, right at 20 years now.
20 years. And
Mhm.
well, when you're in middle school and what drew you to percussion? Like some people wonder, why would somebody be a percussionist or why would somebody be a violinist or
You know, I wish I could tell you I had that story of every percussionist that, they bang on pots and pans, but I really don't know that I did do that. I knew I wanted to be in band and I wanted to play percussion. And there's actually kind of a funny story. I almost not ended up as a percussionist because they had too many drummers already.
Hmm.
And so they had assigned me to trumpet, and my mom was really not happy about that. So we went and talked to the band director, and he tested me for percussion again. He was like, "Okay, well, we'll make it work." Um, and really, probably one of the most pivotal things is that band director ended up not being there the following year. He either retired or left, and the new band director was a first year teacher. Her name was Beth Shelton, and her husband is a percussionist, Mark Shelton. And I'm still in contact with them a lot. And it was through seeing what he was doing, his performing, those kinds of things that really got me interested in it. He would come and work with our middle school percussion section. And that really got turned things on for me. And then my middle school, the second year, the middle school band director, he was a percussionist. So now I've got this thing really driving the fire and, kind of just took
Right,
off from
right.
there.
But your
Mhm.
mother didn't want you to play trumpet.
My mom wanted me to play what I wanted to play.
Oh, I
I
see.
don't think she really cared about it being trumpet or not trumpet, but she knew this was the thing that I wanted to do and really hated to see me not to get to do that. So I'm just glad I
Yeah.
didn't end up a trumpet player.
I mean, there's the jokes about having a percussionist in the house. I mean,
Right.
I have a neighbor who's an amateur percussionist, and I can hear it faintly, from the next house, but I wonder what it'd be like to live with it 24/7, him and his
Yeah.
trumpet.
Well, my wife is getting double duty because my 14-year-old son is a very talented young percussionist, and so she's getting it from me and from him
Mm.
lots of the time right now.
Well, speaking of audience members, I mean, I've kind come to understand that many people don't always know what percussionists do back there in an orchestra, and how can you fill us in on this? Because it looks like it looks simple, I think, to some people,
Right.
and but what's it you don't play as much as other
Right.
people. That's one
Right.
thing. And then just the idea of what it's like when you do play and what matters.
Yeah. Well, we are tasked with coloring the orchestra many of the times, orchestra, band, whatever ensemble you're performing with. And so I think that's kind of a nice responsibility that we have. One of the other things that I think folks don't perhaps think about or realize that almost I mean, it's not completely without fail, but nearly every time we play, we're a soloist.
Hmm.
Whereas if you're, playing in the violin section, you've got, 12 or 14 other people playing exactly the same thing you are playing, right? Some of the winds, have that, but a lot of times they're playing, more as a section, and less as a soloist. But almost every note we play is as a soloist. So I think sometimes the pressure that we feel, maybe folks don't understand that it could be even heightened from many of the other members of the orchestra. We also have the aspect of having to move gear and get things in place, and the some of the organization that takes place as a percussionist ahead of time is, I think, a lot more involved than what would be if you're a section player as a string
Yeah,
player or a wind player. Hmm.
it's not noticed, but all that's planned out where everything goes, right? To
Right, exactly.
get to it.
Spreadsheets going to the players with assignments for all this, and that has to
Who
happen.
plays what and how they move to those things. Yeah, it's like a little
Who plays
choreography.
what, diagrams of how to set up on stage so that we know we can move from thing to thing efficiently. I honestly sometimes think that people believe that the percussionists show up and like all the gear is there, and that's really not how it works. You're spending hours usually before and after setting things up.
And then, like, does everyone play all the instruments? Does
Right.
everyone know all the instruments, right?
That is going to be expected with the exception of the timpanist. So the timpanist occupies a very central role in the orchestra. They, in many ways, they can be even seen as like a second conductor because they can really drive the orchestra.
Hmm.
And that is very much a specialty instrument. Now, I don't mean that my students, for example, don't play timpani. They absolutely do. That's part of our curriculum, part of what we study. But when you get to the level of playing with a professional orchestra, the timpanist is the timpanist, and they don't generally play other instruments. On occasion they'll double a little bit, but that is sort of their own thing. Everything else, if you can hit it, spin it, throw it on the floor, you know, it's going to fall into the percussion family. So it's not unusual to play brake drums and flower pots and tin cans and frying pans. I mean, that's those
Yeah.
things really fall into our purview all the time.
So, what's your preference? Do people have preferences, right?
Oh yeah. Well, my when I'm not playing as an orchestra musician, I mean, the instrument I play the most is the marimba. Uh,
Hmm.
that is just the one that I fell in love with. It also, I think, it has a way of speaking to the general audience member more than timpani or a snare drum or playing a solo triangle piece, because you still have aspects of harmony, melody, texture, color that you can get from other instruments, right? And then probably the thing that I do the most is, I'm not sure if you mentioned the Rosewind performance that we have up, but I play as a chamber musician quite a bit. I'm really involved with my saxophone colleague Clifford Lehman. We perform all over the world at concerts and venues and conferences, those kinds of things. And then I also play with a percussion quintet, simpatico percussion. So the chamber music is what I do more than anything. When I'm playing in the orchestra, honestly, my favorite instrument to play is the tambourine.
Oh, really?
I just love the tambourine. I sure do.
And you can play it in so many ways
You can play it in so many ways.
with your
It's
thumb and all of this, right?
compact. You don't have to set anything up. To walk into rehearsal with your tambourine is
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
it's delightful in many ways. And
Yeah.
it's such a visual instrument. When you hold the tambourine up and play it, I mean, folks, they see it and they know that. I mean, they might see you playing xylophone and they may see you playing the glockenspiel, but the tambourine it's really, I mean, it's intimate to the player, and it's also can be a little more intimate to the audience because they can see it really well.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm always fascinated with the real artistry of how many different ways you can play some simple thing like a triangle
Right.
or a tambourine or whatever, and or how many different triangles there are, how many symbols there are, and it's really that's also not always seen because you may only bring a couple on stage, but there's many more that you chose them from, right? And just like you said, I guess about the color, what
Yes.
color will you give to the general sound, and so let me ask you this, like, well, and how do you adjust, like you walk into a new orchestra in a new hall, and how loud do you know how to play, how do you gauge that?
You often don't. You have to. There's a learning curve that goes with that for sure, and you need people to help you understand that too. I that's one of the things that percussionists really rely on the conductor for. I mean, the time beating and the musicality, those are important too, but being able to have ears in front of the group while the group is playing and hearing these cymbals or that tambourine or that triangle. And so you hope that the conductor is listening for that and can help give that. We also often will have the players go out into the audience when they're not playing and do some listening to see what it is. But you have to use contextual clues too. I mean, I'm probably not going to use a 9 or 12 inch triangle if I'm playing isolated notes with the winds and high strings. I'm going to, give that some thought. It's going to be a smaller triangle beater. It's probably going to be a smaller triangle. But if I've got to play something super heavy and loud, Brahms, Wagner on triangle, I'm going to go for something a lot meatier sound,
Yeah.
instrument, bigger implement to hit it with.
And I've noticed that it's like the conductor can decide how much color, I guess, not only loud, but you can encourage more kind of spice on the food, with the percussion, or blend it in. I guess it just depends on taste in a way, besides the hall and the loudness. But it's so much, and there's just and then and I find with students well, less experienced percussion, the gong seems to be really hard to play. Is that
Yeah,
just me? And the
no,
people, no, that's it.
no. Yeah, the tam tam doesn't respond very quickly, and so you just like with any other instrument, a clarinet or a violin, I mean, you have to learn like the characteristics of each one. And for example, I mean, we may have 7 or 8 tam tams or gongs at the USC School of Music, and every single one of them is going to respond a little bit differently depending on what mallet you use, the environment that you're in. Learning that you have to maybe lead a little bit ahead of where you want to place that note so that it blossoms on time. Those are things that are they're very hard to quantify as well. It's not, you can't just tell a student, oh, you have to play that 1/16th note early, or you have to
Yeah,
play, you just have to learn where those instruments are going to speak.
and I guess it's a feel for it. Like I had. It's hard to explain, maybe with any instrument, but I had a girl in my orchestra last year, and she was very inexperienced. She may have been a freshman, but
Mhm.
every single cymbal crash was great. She never missed, you know.
Wow.
And there were people that practice it and practice it and it's inconsistent. And she was like, not even a problem ever. I could always rely on there she goes. And they were different. They fit in music
Right.
too.
Right.
It's really fascinating. How does she know? You know,
Right.
she
Well,
just
it sounds
on
like
the
she's
feel
probably had some good teaching, and there may be just some innate, her tuning in to the sound she's making.
before
Uh,
she adds her sound. She's listening to
right.
the orchestra. Yeah.
That's right. What sound is going to fit here? What size cymbals? How much are you going to leave the cymbals together after they meet each other? Are you going to pull them apart immediately? You're going to let them stick for just a second. Those all are going to have tremendous effects on the way the cymbals sound.
And the movement you make after you hit it,
Absolutely.
what you
Yep.
do. Yeah, it's just so fascinating. And then you think about, well, everybody has all these instructions. Everybody has all of this printed music. Composer has told everybody pretty much what to do. But then, when you think about it, a lot of times they don't micromanage the percussion parts. It's
No.
like up to you to figure it out. And you maybe get the least amount of instruction from the composer.
Right. You may have a part that just says cymbals. And
Yeah.
so it has to be decided, are you going to play hand crash cymbals? Are you going to play a suspended cymbal?
Oh yeah, that too.
If you play a suspended cymbal, do you play with a stick? Do you play with a mallet? Do you hit it with a triangle beater? Where on the cymbal do you? There's just, it's so infinite, as to how many sounds you can get from these instruments. Not
The most you might get is hit it with a felt mallet or hit it with a stick.
right,
And
right.
that's it. And after that, they leave it up to all of the. So it's just fascinating. I mean, it just takes so much artistry to do it well. And I don't know how people recognize that or not, because mostly they see you sitting in chairs waiting to play one note.
101, 2, 3, 4, 102.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. It's one of the specifically the cymbals. One of the greatest cymbal parts in the repertoire is the Debussy La Mer, and there
Mm.
are. I mean, when you watch a really experienced percussionist play this, they have, I don't know, 6, 7 different implements they're using coins, brushes, sticks, mallets, things to really, really color the orchestra. And it becomes very individual and personal.
Yeah.
I find some of those decisions are almost like a violinist or pianist or cellist would say about playing Bach. It's so personal. And everyone's going to tell you their own way to do it. They may or may not agree with the next person.
And the
So
traditions, and I don't know,
traditions.
you remember Harold Farberman would teach at the Conductors Institute, and he
Oh,
taught, and he was a percussionist with the Boston Symphony when he was 19,
mm,
and it was a French conductor, Charles Munch, right? It was like a French orchestra. And Harold told me that when he was new and they were playing La Mer, which these cymbal crashes are like waves crashing, many of them,
right.
right? And he went to pick up a pair of cymbals, and they said, no, 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 no. And they opened this whole case of cymbals. And they said, we used these cymbals for that note. And it was exact, worked out by that time by all these people. And I guess in consultation with the conductor, everything, what the whole general sound they wanted, but they owned a whole case full and
Right.
picked them out, and yeah, it's really a lot there going on, but it's nice to just talk about it. So
Sure. Yeah.
thanks for your time, and it's I've always liked our working together because we have you email me questions, and it's nice to just work together like that also. Uh, so thanks again.
Yeah. Sorry. One of us was frozen there. I wasn't sure. I wasn't
Oh,
sure if you
you
were.
froze for a minute, but I think
Yeah.
we're
Sorry
good.
about that. Yeah. No, it's great. I've loved visiting with you about this, and can't wait till we're back playing on stage again.
Me too.
Yeah.
So we'll look forward to that.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks so much, David.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.